She thought missing one exam would ruin everything, until a billionaire's wife collapsed in front of her, bleeding and alone while everyone else walked past. She didn't hesitate. She stopped, saved a life, and lost her future in the process. But 3 days later, as she sat in fear, shame, and uncertainty, the sound of thunder filled her neighborhood. A helicopter descended into her yard, bringing a truth no one expected. Where you're watching from, comment below, and don't forget to subscribe. Maya had always lived her life in motion. Early shifts, late-night study sessions, and weekends spent catching up on everything she couldn't afford to fall behind on. A black nursing student with dreams far bigger than her tiny off-campus room, she carried the weight of her future on her shoulders like it was something she'd been born holding. Every dollar mattered, every grade mattered, every decision mattered, and Maya never let herself forget that. Most mornings looked the same, waking up before the sun, slipping into the same faded blue scrub she washed by hand, and whispering the same promise she made to herself years ago. Keep going. Her scholarship wasn't just money, it was her lifeline. Losing it meant losing the career she dedicated her entire life to. She couldn't afford distractions, mistakes, or moments of weakness. Not when the world already treated students like her as if they didn't belong. But beneath her determination lived a quiet fear, the fear of becoming invisible, overlooked, or dismissed the way so many others before her had been. She'd seen classmates get second chances she could only dream of. She'd watched professors extend grace selectively, bending rules for some while enforcing them like iron for others. Still, Maya pushed forward, believing hard work would be enough. That Thursday morning felt no different at first. Her final exam, the one class that determined whether she kept her scholarship, was just an hour away. She packed her worn-out backpack, checked her schedule twice, and stepped into the cold morning air determined to make it on time. What she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly predict, was that a single moment on a crowded street would rip every plan apart, force her into an impossible choice, and expose a truth far bigger than her own struggles. And once she made that choice, nothing in her life would ever be the same again. Maya rushed down the crowded sidewalk, her breath forming thin clouds in the cold morning air. The exam was less than an hour away, and she mentally rehearsed every chapter she had studied through sleepless nights. She moved with purpose until the world forced her to stop. Just ahead, near the corner pharmacy, a woman collapsed against the brick wall, her expensive coat soaked in red. People glanced and kept walking. Cars slowed, then sped up. In a city this busy, tragedy often blended into the background. But not for Maya. Her instincts, training, and compassion pulled her forward before she had time to think about consequences. The woman's condition was worse than it first appeared. Shallow breaths, unfocused eyes, a pulse fading beneath trembling fingers. Maya's scrubs were soon covered in blood as she worked frantically to stabilize her, alone in a crowd that had decided her life was someone else's problem. Minutes felt like hours, and every second slipping away made her heart beat louder than the sirens she prayed to hear. By the time paramedics arrived, Maya was exhausted, her hands shaking from the effort. But she had done enough, more than enough. She had given the woman time she wouldn't have had otherwise, and as the ambulance pulled away, Maya knew what the sacrifice had cost her. Her exam had already begun. She was too late. Still, she walked to campus hoping for mercy, hoping for fairness, hoping that saving a life would mean something. But inside the polished halls of her university, hopes like hers rarely survived. The door to the exam room remained shut, as if her entire future was being held on the other side. Through the glass, she could see her classmates taking their tests while she stood outside, punished not for wrongdoing but for doing the right thing. When the official notice arrived hours later, it felt like the ground beneath her slipped. Not only had she failed the exam, her scholarship was revoked. Maya's entire world, held together with determination and borrowed time, crumbled instantly. A missed exam became a weapon, and the institution she trusted became the hand that swung it. But the cruelty didn't stop there. Meetings that should have offered understanding instead delivered humiliation. Policies that were supposed to protect students were twisted into barriers against her. Rules were cited like shields, shielding those in power from accountability. Maya had watched exceptions granted to others, students with privilege and influence. Yet she was told her circumstances didn't matter, her sacrifice didn't qualify, her humanity wasn't enough. Word of her situation began spreading online through a short, shaky video someone took of her at the rescue scene. Suddenly, millions of people saw what she did, saw the blood on her scrubs, her steady hands, her selflessness. Support poured in from strangers, while ridicule and racist backlash followed close behind. The noise grew louder, but the institution stayed silent. Then, as Maya faced eviction notices, tuition deadlines, and the weight of her collapsing future, something happened that no one expected. A message reached her from an unfamiliar number, and early the next morning, a sound thundered across her neighborhood rollerblades, slicing through the air, shaking the windows, drawing every pair of eyes to the sky. A helicopter began descending into her yard. The same woman she saved was coming back, and the truth she carried would ignite a storm Maya never saw coming. The helicopter's wind churned through the courtyard, shaking loose papers, rattling windows, and forcing neighbors to shield their faces. Maya stood frozen as the door opened, and the woman she saved, bandaged, pale, but standing, stepped onto the ground with a legal team behind her. It should have been a moment of relief. Instead, it became the moment Maya learned just how far the university had gone to silence her. Inside Maya's small apartment, the woman laid everything on the table: documents, emails, internal reports Maya had never seen. It was part of a pattern: years of selective enforcement, punishments aimed overwhelmingly at students who looked like her, rules bent quietly for privileged students, while students of color were denied every chance to explain, defend themselves, or even be heard. But the worst blow came when Maya discovered something else. The university wasn't just punishing her. They were preparing to erase her. A conduct review, built on twisted notes, manipulated records, and exaggerated claims, was being assembled behind closed doors. It was designed to destroy her credibility permanently, to ensure no other institution would ever accept her, to make her an example of what happens when students like her speak up, all for saving a woman's life. Maya felt the weight of every barrier she had ever pushed against pressed down at once. She had worked twice as hard for half the recognition. Now they were ready to end everything she had fought for, not because she failed, but because she dared to succeed in a place that never believed she belonged. As the woman's attorney read the final page aloud, the room fell silent. Her future was being rewritten without her consent. This was no longer about a missed exam. This was a battle for her dignity, her identity, her right to exist in spaces built to keep her out. And as she looked up from the papers, one truth became painfully clear. If she didn't fight now, she would lose everything. But the world was finally watching. The days that followed moved like a storm, loud, relentless, impossible to ignore. Once the truth came to light, the university could no longer hide behind polished statements and rigid policies. Students marched, professors spoke out, and the administration found itself exposed under a spotlight brighter than anything it had ever faced. What began as Maya's personal nightmare grew into a movement she never asked for, but one she became the face of. Public pressure forced the board to confront the truth buried in their own records: the discriminatory patterns, the silent students, the policies designed to appear fair while being used as tools against those least protected. And for the first time, the institution had no choice but to admit it. Maya's scholarship was reinstated, her record cleared, and a new policy created to ensure no student would ever be punished for choosing humanity over rules. But the real transformation was deeper than paperwork. Her story spread beyond her university, reaching classrooms, newsrooms, and dinner tables across the country. It sparked conversations about who gets second chances and who never even gets a first. And while Maya finally returned to her studies, she carried something new with her: an understanding of how fragile justice can be and how powerful a single act of courage truly is. Helping a stranger cost her everything for a moment, but it also reshaped an entire system. Her journey became a reminder that racism doesn't always show itself loudly. Sometimes it hides behind policies, paperwork, and polite voices. Sometimes it looks like fairness until you look closer. Maya's story began with one choice: to stop when everyone else kept walking. The question is, when it's your turn to choose, will you stop too?